Hello and welcome back to Polytoots. Apparently it's Spooktober or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I know Halloween is only one night, but apparently we now celebrate it for the whole month, which is fine. I'm completely okay with that. My local Sainsbury's is actually already putting out the Christmas stuff, which is pretty strange. Like, they're missing the Halloween segment and they're going straight for Christmas. Bold move, if you ask me. Bold move. But anyway, we are going to be making a pumpkin, like you can see here. And the first video is just going to be sculpt, and then part 2 we'll be dealing with the retopo and the UVs, and then maybe the texture. Either that or part 3 will be the texture. But anyway, this one's sculpting. If you don't like sculpting, don't watch this one. The other ones will be up some other point. Okay, so starting off in 3D Coat, let's go to voxel sculpting, and we could just use a sphere, but I'm not sure what sizes these come in, so let's just open up a new scene, and I'll get my grid for now. So show 3D grid, and we'll just manually put down a sphere. I do want it to be small, but not too small, so maybe I'll scale it up just a little bit. That should be fine. The reason I kind of want it small is I haven't yet decided, but I might be doing lots of radial symmetry like we did in the 3D Coat overview, and that really kind of suffers if you're dealing with like a dense mesh, because it's performing like the same operation like 16 times around the same thing. But anyway, enough of that. So let's get just a basic sort of shape. And you may have noticed in 3D Coat, when you scale things non-uniformly, you do get a little warning down here, and it's pretty important that you right click on a layer and set it back to global space after you've made whatever scaling changes you want. And let me show you why. So I'll do an exaggerated example here, and I'll get rid of the grid as well. So let's grab I don't know, some sort of brush kind of a thing. Should be fine. So if I were to start sculpting here, it might be a bit hard to see what's going on, but like it feels like it's sort of calligraphy almost, like things are a bit skewed. And similarly, if I were to put this to global space, and then, I mean, obviously immediately the lighting changed because it wasn't stretched along the whole object. So now if I were to use the same brush, the same settings, and just do this, that's more of what you would expect. It's everything sort of consistent. It's the same sort of width. It's the width that I specified. Whereas here, it's a bit it's a bit warped basically. So yeah, if you're ever sort of doing some sculpts on stuff and your brush just isn't quite behaving the way that you think it should, it's probably because you've done a scale and things are weird. So anyway, let's just undo all of this. So we'll bring it back to where we scaled it in just a tiny bit, and to global space. Now I'm going to hit the orthographic mode here, so now I'm not using perspective. It's number 5 on your number pad, but I don't have a number pad anymore, so yeah, I just hit this button up here. And the reason I'm in this view is I'm going to just use the pose tool real quick, and basically what I want to do is actually flatten the bottom of this just a bit. Like, I don't want to use a cutoff. I don't want it to be completely flattened. I just want just a little bit. And one kind of neat thing is you can use Symmetry to kind of help make sure that your scaling is done symmetrical. And so it's this one that we want. And using the pose tool with the line mode, just going to draw, I guess, maybe something like this. And another little tip: when you do the line mode in the pose tool, the axis it will be orientated essentially just how your line was drawn. So if I'm like this, then my line, sorry, not my line, my axis is now rotated like that. Which is something to keep in mind if you're trying to do something that's actually sort of like straight and symmetrical without any kind of wonkiness. Then no matter how straight you think it looks, you just hit the reset axis button here, and that will actually put the axis back to the root. So anyway, now I'm just going to scale this down just a bit, and I hit Control D to basically deselect out of that. So that'll do for that. I'll hide my symmetry planes for now. Don't really want to do the same on the top just yet. I mean, this whole shape is kind of going to change, but let's come back into perspective at least, and we'll keep symmetry on actually. I'm going to get a big move tool, and I'll just push this down. That's too much. So maybe something more like that. I kind of want it to be subtle because I'm going to be making a bunch of stuff here, and it will eventually kind of flow over that edge. In fact, if anything, if it's possible, I'd like to smooth this out a bit. So I'm just holding the shift key to do that. It's probably not going to have much of an effect, but yeah, that should do. Okay, so from here, there's a couple of ways that you could do this. If you've seen my overview videos where we did the cupcake, then you might be sort of thinking that you could just get down a radial symmetry, give it some numbers, get like a, I don't know, some sort of drawing tool, clay or something, and just like start carving into this, which is completely fine. In fact, that might be the way that we do it. I haven't decided. I really should kind of think these things through before I start doing them, but the problem is that there's lots of ways to do this. So that's one way. Another way is essentially the same, but rather than doing the indent, you just focus on the outdent, and that's the wrong brush for it. But if you wanted to do it without this symmetry thing, like if you wanted your pumpkin to be not symmetrical, so let's just disable symmetry for now. One way that you kind of could start, depending on the style of the pumpkin that you were aiming for, of course, but you could just, that's probably a bit big, could just start raising and lowering some bits on the top. This way is gonna, it takes a bit longer, but again, it kind of depends on what pumpkin you're after, because there are many weird ones out there. So that hasn't done entirely what I wanted, but basically you have a bunch of sort of peaks and dips, not too many. If you can imagine like the top of a green pepper, or a red pepper, or a yellow pepper, I'm not biased. Kind of has a bit of that shape, but it also kind of follows it into the middle again. And once you have that, you can kind of come along and let's say, not sure, either a build, clay. I'll go with the clay again. And you want something a bit softer, so a big brush that's kind of soft. And so now you kind of set your points. You would just kind of come in, maybe it needs to be a bit bigger, and start forming the shapes off of those, which you know, it would create a more sort of natural and irregular looking pumpkin. Again, kind of just depends what you're after. And then obviously for like the middle bits, if you want, you can kind of just do the opposite by holding control a bit. And basically just continue that all the way around. If you wanted that more sort of, I don't know what to call it, an organic, more like pumpkin. Possibly. I don't quite understand that. When you see organic goods in supermarkets, most of it is organic anyway. I don't understand how the non-organic bananas aren't organic. But maybe someone can tell me in the comments. So yeah, that's kind of how you do that all the way around. But we are going to go back to the way that we were doing it before, actually, I think. So let's revert this back to where it was using the power of editing. So yeah, here we are again with just our sphere that's squished and moved the top in and did the pose thing on the bottom. So we are going to do this method where we're just going to basically do that, but we can get a little bit of help here. We're going to use an extra mirror, so S on the symmetry key, and if I show symmetry plane, you'll see that it's by default handed us the opposite symmetry underneath, which is just going to kind of help with these strokes, because it's a bit annoying kind of having to, like if I turn this off actually, having to kind of get like a smooth indent that goes all the way down. Not that we need it to go all the way, like this would be completely fine, but we'll do this anyway, so it kind of meets us halfway. And I'm gonna just increase the power of my brush a little bit. So now I really only need to focus on this bit, and the rest should kind of follow suit. So let's try this, and then it meets in the middle there. So pretty cool, although it can leave you with some weirdness here, which you can either sort of try and smooth out, or you just sculpt it in a little bit. Yeah, can't tell if I'm making it worse or not. Not that it matters, we're going to go over this whole thing anyway. So there's the base done at least. And now before we do anything else, like before we get too nitty gritty, although it's pumpkin, there's not much nits or grits, we're going to do the inside of this thing. And essentially the easiest way to do that is using like the plainest shape possible. In fact, may even, like the shape that we started with, it might have been worth duplicating that to keep it as something to actually cut out of this pumpkin, but I didn't think that far ahead. But this shape is more than fine, so we're going to duplicate this one, and just for easiness sake, let's rename some stuff. So we'll call this one pumpkin. We don't need to give this other one a name because we're going to get rid of it in a second. And I'm going to hit this sphere icon here to basically turn the pumpkin layer into a ghost, which you can't see at the moment because this other layer is already there, but basically there, it's a ghost. Or you can hit the G key on your keyboard. That only works with the selected layer, so something to bear in mind. So yeah, we do want to ghost that one, because what we're going to do is we're just going to scale this one in just a pinch. Maybe a pinch more. Okay, should be fine. And then let's unghost that one. So holding the control key and then moving this layer into that one, what it's actually done is it's just chopped out the inside of this mesh. So if we come inside, you can see this is the inside of our pumpkin now, which wasn't there before. Yeah, so that makes things a little bit easier. So now we're just going to work on, I guess, sharpening up some of these shapes. Things, you know, it's looking a bit too blobby at the moment. Although before we do that, we might as well experiment around a bit with our material. So I have this material applied. If I just right click and edit the current objects settings, basically means it will only affect this object. It won't spam me with some new material that I'll probably never use again. So let's give this like a pumpkin orange, and let's give it some cavity actually. I mean, those values are pretty good actually, but let's play with them a bit. So which one's this one? This is, I guess, the innards, so that's going to be the darkish brown. And then bulge, which we might kind of want to be the same. I'm not sure if I want a bulge or not, because it kind of, as you see, it sort of overpowers the whole thing, because the bulge is sort of what makes this. That looks a lot like a tangerine, or how else are they called? Mandarins, I think, although I don't think we really call them mandarins here. Tangerine's probably the most common. So yeah, the bulge on this, maybe just a touch brighter. Nothing crazy. So yeah, so now it kind of, it's got that pumpkin vibe going forward already. So let's actually hop it into surface mode. And what I'm going to do here is maybe with the draw tool, which is, yes, this one there. I tend to put my most used ones up in the quick access, but I've recently reinstalled 3D Code, so I still haven't moved everything around. Anyway, so let's see, we're at 301,000. Should be okay for now. So let's just might help if we were to enable symmetry. So for now, I am going to keep the symmetry on. We'll turn it off toward the end as we kind of do some unique stuff. But for now, it's okay. And for the like the complete bottom of this, not really worrying too much. For what I have in mind for it, it's just going to be sat somewhere anyway, so it isn't actually, you know, this will never be seen. But you know, if you wanted to, you could continue all of these sort of things down here and do whatever. If you were doing some sort of game where you can just throw pumpkins around. But yeah, so the reason I'm just kind of hammering into this line here, although it kind of doesn't make much sense, is I'm eventually just going to smooth it out. So that's why I'm going a bit strong with it, but not too strong. Yeah, and I find oftentimes, at least, it helps to actually stick on a material that roughly resembles whatever your final texture would be, especially if you're considering sort of the cavity maps or anything like that, because it really helps kind of give a visualization as to your dark areas and your light areas, and I don't know, I think it's really cool, just to kind of like, it's almost like you're seeing a couple of steps ahead while you're still in the early stages. So I very much appreciate things like that. I'm going to get a bigger brush, but I'm really going to try and bring this strength down, because I'm just trying to strengthen the shapes that are already there rather than kind of creating whole new ones. It's looking a bit weird, kind of like a flower. So we can try to bring these so they're a little bit more normal, I guess. And smooth them out a little bit. That's pretty good. Probably shouldn't be saying that, it's my work. We're supposed to hate the work that we do. Well, what is it they say? The last piece is always your best piece. Something like that. It's pretty accurate. Depending on what you do, at least. Yeah, so I'm probably gonna skip ahead for a little bit of this, because basically just, like, I'm not gonna change the shape too much. I'm just kind of gonna use some sculpting tools, maybe the rapid, I'm not sure yet. It's a bit strong. I don't know, I'll see. So yeah, I'm gonna speed through, and then I'll be back when we're ready to move on to the next bit. Okay, so that was actually a lot quicker than I thought. Yeah, because I'd pushed these bits out and I'd pushed the like the cavity bits in, and I'd moved them out actually so far that actually all I had to do was just smooth them back down, and it's created quite a nice result. There is still a good silhouette to this, so now we can basically just move on. So where's my front view? I have mentioned this in other videos, but you see up here, oftentimes it will tell you which orientation you are actually looking at. So not if you're in like a perspective mode or anything, but if you're holding the Alt key and then you're just moving your mouse or your Wacom pen, hopefully, to rotate around, whilst you're doing that, just hold the Shift key, and it will snap to whichever view is the closest, basically. So we're now here in the front view, so it's pretty cool. So right, top, yeah, so something to keep in mind. Makes navigating a lot easier. Yeah, so now we're going to actually start carving this. and this can be whatever the hell you want. I'm actually going to create a duplicate because maybe we'd want 2 of them. So I'll just call this pumpkin 01, although if that's 01 and this is 00, if there's any programmers watching, hopefully they'll appreciate that. Yeah, so carving into it, we're going to use the Cutoff Tool, which also disables Symmetry for now. The Cutoff Tool by default, like if I were to just draw a line here, and it would help if I was on the right layer. So if I were to cut through this, it's going to cut through the whole thing, and obviously I'm in perspective, so from where I cut it looked straight, but because this is perspective it's obviously bigger on the other side. So perspective doesn't really matter too much because we only want to cut on the front, but you can hop into orthographic if you want. So let me just undo that, and before we do this, actually I'm going to swap back into voxel mode. Let's give this more, maybe a lot, not a lot more, maybe 600,000. And then choose the Cutoff Tool again. The reason I've done that is oftentimes the Cut Tool kind of wigs out a bit in surface mode, in that it can't perform the Boolean operation, which is just, you know, it's kind of it's how the surface mode operates. It can work. I mean, you know, if you absolutely have to stay in surface mode, then I'm not saying that you can't use these tools. It's just if you want 100% guaranteed Boolean operations, then voxel's kind of where it's at. So yeah, anyway, rambling on. So yeah, as I was saying, if you do this, it'll cut through either side, which is no good. But if you press the E key, or if you hover over up here, there is a depth limit, and so we'll enable that. And I'm not sure what 1 will do for now. So okay, we're going to need more than 1. Let's try 5. Maybe going to need a little bit more than 5, although that's strange behavior actually. Let's try 15. Okay, so 15 seems okay. So now you can just carve whatever shape it is you want. So I'll just do something, maybe, do I want symmetry? I can't tell. If I did, it would be to the x-axis. So essentially any sort of shape I cut in here now will cut out of that. And then put in a bit of a mouth. Just realized I've got symmetry still enabled, so this is going to need to be redone. That is horrible. Although it is Spooktober, so but no, that's just horrible from a technical point of view. Bit weird. Triangle count, maybe we want to bump that up. Also, I don't like those eyes, so I'm going to undo those. Let's give ourselves some more geometry by resampling. I mean, 1,000,000 you thought would be fine, so keep it like that. And symmetry disabled. So let's wow, that was bad. So maybe I don't know. I mean, they don't have to be the same. They look too close, so this guy's either going to have a huge mouth or he's going to look weird, so let's try him with a huge mouth. Yeah, so it's gone a bit weird. That's a bit strange. I might actually need even more geometry, which is kind of insane when you think that this is already 1,000,000, but I guess in the world of sculpting 1,000,000 isn't much. So yeah, let's give this a little bit more juice. 2.3. And while we're here, instead of actually doing the mouth each time, we'll just kind of do this. So we know we probably don't want to go beyond that point here. So anything below that is going to be a bit weird, which is fine actually. That's quite far down. So anyway, let's just continue with this. Yeah, pretty good. I'm not looking forward to retopologizing this. Yeah, kind of forgot that I was doing that. Got a weird seam. Oh well. Yeah, so there's one, and then obviously you can do whatever you want for the other one, or keep duplicating the base of this and doing whatever. We are missing, of course, the is it the stem? Wait, the stem's like the base of a plant. Although I guess that's how the pumpkin grows out. So yeah, a stem. I'm just gonna say stem. I'm sticking with it. That is my final answer. So primitives. I guess we'll just do a cylinder and then we'll just bend it. That should be fine. So something like this. Ah, you know what? We don't need to do this. We can just use curves. Yeah, it's a bit quicker. That'll do. So just apply that, and then smooth this up. I guess this is just like a viney thing. A viney thing? A planty thing, so just get some random, not random, but swooshes. So that's the word I'm looking for. Swoosh. Got to swoosh those in there. Want it to look a bit like as it was growing, it kind of twisted around a bit. Could potentially just grab the pose tool. This might not work, but and actually put in. Oh, it's pretty good. Bit of a twist there. Yeah, sold. And then we might as well just. Wait, what's this? I think that's frog skin or something. No, we won't do that. Cancel this. I'm going to smooth this out just a little bit. That's way too much. Okay, I'm not going to smooth it out. So let's see, edit current objects shader settings. Yeah, that'll do. So now we just need to tidy up this a little bit. Let's go back to surface mode. Actually, no, tell a lie. We're going to do the lid. So I'm going to hide the stem for now. And let's go into orthographic again. And there's a couple of ways that we can kind of split things. Although this is in surface still. I thought I put it in voxels. Oh, doesn't matter. Put it back into voxels. Yeah, so there's a couple of ways to split. One is to actually use the split tool. So if I were to just chop off his head there, you see it creates this new layer. Interesting that it gave it a different material. I guess that's fine. That's actually super annoying because, you know how I was saying it's handy to do edits of the shader that the object is using, which means there's no shader that this pumpkin refers to, so I can't give the top of this the same one. But Ah well, it is what it is. So yeah, there's the split tool, and that just creates this perfect kind of cut. In fact, if this had the same material, if I had to do that, you wouldn't be able to tell that it was actually cut until you moved it off. But we do want a little bit of sort of like a seam along here because you know, it's been cut with a knife. So let's just undo that, put the pumpkin back to where it was, and instead we will use there's a box hide, which is this one, and if we just let's just actually, instead of doing a straight line, we'll do some kind of squiggles as if it was sort of, you know, cut by a person that was trying to do it straight but failed. So we'll do that, and it's hidden. We do have this bit here in the middle, but that shouldn't be fine. We can get rid of that. So now with this hidden, which means we can sort of unhide it by holding Control. But with that hidden, I just hit Control Z, by the way, if that was confusing. What we can actually do is we can come up here to Geometry, and there is this Objectify hidden. So if we hit that, it will actually place it back in along with a bit of a seam, which is pretty cool. So we have now the pumpkin lid. Yeah, pretty cool. So let's just clean up this mess that I made. Should just be able to, if I select the right layer at least, smooth them out to the point where they just kind of become nothing. Gone. Yeah, and so we just need to tidy up some of this stuff because it's a bit weird looking. So I'm just going to lightly kind of come over here, get my smoothing down a little bit. And you don't need to see me do this in real time, so it is time to speed up the video while I just smooth all of this out. Okay, that will do nicely. We do have a bit of a gap here on our lid, but luckily I think our stem's going to hide that, so don't really need to fix it. But if you did want to fix it, there is a fill tool somewhere up here, and I mean this isn't going to just like completely fix everything, but it tries to basically merge some gaps back together. Like if you had like a dent in a mesh and you didn't want it to be there, you could kind of at least use the fill tool to fix it. It would still look a bit weird, but yeah, for the most part it's fine. A little bit down here. Anyway, that's okay. So yeah, so this has been the sculpting portion at least, and I can't leave it like this because I need to let's just say custom. Let's actually create a material like we should have done from the beginning. So pumpkin, and we'll leave it default for now because we actually just want to apply it to stuff. So anything you have selected as a layer will get whatever material you click on. So that was probably very obvious, I didn't need to explain it. So edit permanent shader settings this time because we want to actually change it. So I'm just going to speed up the video again while I kind of just do things to put them back to the way they were. Okay, so that will wrap up the sculpting portion of this video. We're going to move on eventually to the retopo, and then we'll texture it, and then I guess maybe as some bonus stuff we'll actually put it into Engine and do some stuff with it, maybe some particle effects or something nice with lights. But yeah, for now this one's over, and just to kind of explain a little bit about what we'll be doing in the retopo. Bearing in mind the target here is sort of in engine for a game. This isn't like a hero asset or anything, so it's going to be real tricky to kind of keep the poly count down and still keep all of this stuff in. And we're going to use a bit of a trick, I guess, tried and tested method of fakery and illusion to kind of deal with that, to keep it, you know, as it is now, but without having to add in just a ton of polys for everything. But yeah, anyway, so that is the end of the sculpt. We'll be back again, hopefully in a day or two. I shouldn't promise anything. It could even be next week, depending on my schedule. But yeah, so that's the end of that one. We'll be doing the retopo next. Stick around. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and toodaloo.